Hello and welcome to the coverage of the Cheap Thrills Summer Invitational Finals taking place in August of 2016. The Cheap Thrills Invitational is a biannual tournament we started running earlier on this year. We run 4 weeks of Swiss events with a winner each week qualifying for a 4-man double elimination final. This is the finals. Unfortunately, at the start of the evening, the mini USB port on my camera decided to collapse into the camera, so it only had enough battery power to cover one game, which is this, the final. So on the left we've got the previous and defending Invitational champion Simon Johnston playing his Andromeda deck, and on the right Matt Hume playing ETF. So Matt's just started by icing R&D, installing a card, taking a credit. So Resing Advanced Assembly Lines, which is a really nice card in ETF. Gain a credit for installing it, gain more money for resing it, then you get to install a card from its ability, which gains you another credit. Just a really nice economy card that just keeps you ticking over. Data packs for this tournament were up to and including blood money. Speaking of blood money, I believe Simon's running the very popular criminal resource Temujin Contracts. So Temujin Contract is a really strong economy card. I believe from memory and a little bit of research, it's actually the highest paying runner resource economy that there is. Especially because it doesn't replace any other kind of effects. So things like dirty laundry, security testing, account siphon, Gabe's ID ability, even just accessing cards, all of these things still happen, as well as gaining 4 credits every time you run the server. So Simon's put it on archives, which is gonna, you would think, force Matt into having to protect that archives if he wants to stop Simon getting that easy money. So Matt playing a blue level clearance there to gain some credits and 2 cards. Yeah, and there's an ice going down archives. It'd be interesting to see if Simon feels the need to just face check that ice and see what it is. Temujin is a really interesting resource actually. The way you have to choose a server and then it remains on that server is really interesting. So you can't bounce around like a security testing. It's like a bank job where you can just go for any remote. It has to be this one server of choice. So if you're playing like a heavy R&D or HQ attack deck, you can choose one of those. It might be that you want to choose a certain remote that you feel that you're camping. Archives is a good choice. A lot of corps choose not to ice archives, and Temujin Contract could really just force them to have to do that. Katie Jones coming down from Simon. So Simon's got 3 really good money making resources down there in Temujin Contract, security testing and Katie Jones. Security testing can just tick each turn. Temujin is just a constant threat on that archives, and Katie's just a card that you can build up. It doesn't grow exponentially, despite what I may have said in an earlier video, politely pointed out to me by both Simon and Charlie that I was entirely wrong on that assessment. Matt installs a new remote, gains his credit for his ID ability in ETF. There are probably few Netrunner players in the world that have played as many ETF games as Matt. I can only think of one tournament I've seen Matt turn up to that he wants to win and didn't play ETF. More surprisingly and interestingly is that Matt's runner is Kate. Any local players that might know Matt would know that Matt has always sworn off Kate as terrible, horrible, janky, net-decked nonsense. Mainland Power Gamer decks, I believe it's called. But with the help of our expat, Charlie Ringer, he's actually playing a Kate deck tonight. So Simon's only breaker right now is a fairy. I think the ice that actually went down archives may be an architect. So fairy will answer that, but it's not a great trade. So a Reba coming down for Andromeda. So this is probably going to be Leela or Gabe. Leela seems to be the option. Yeah, Leela seems to be the popular criminal option. Gabe's certainly one to choose. You can even go Ian Sterling if you're going to do an early game if Phil you're going to fall behind. Leela's really nice though, because it punishes Corpse for doing what they want to do with scoring. Also forces you to double ice most of your centrals. Especially nice, I mean, if Matt was to score out, say, this turn, if that remote was an agenda, Simon could always bounce that archives ice just to reopen the Temujin contracts. So Matt thinking it may be that actually that is an agenda. Now he's just... he might possibly be thinking twice. Okay, yeah, so double advance. So presumably the plan that turn was that he was going to triple advance that card, but maybe the rebuff into leaders just made him think twice, consider his tempo a little bit. Matt just forgetting to take his credit there for the ETF install. So Simon's unlikely to be able to get in here, but it's got to be worth putting the pressure on just to test and see what ice is down there. Try and tax Matt with some credits. So there's a Turing. Simon can elect to click through that for 3 clicks. May well be worth doing it just to further push Matt down credit wise. Face checking ice, you know, it's not a terrible thing. The worst you could see right now, I suppose, would a roto turret, but even then, you got the fairy. No res on that middle ice. Simon continues vanilla. So actually, that's actually a really good res for Matt. Simon can't break that. It's cost Matt nothing, and it is less cards for Leela to be able to bounce. Getting cards online and res against Leela is really key. So Matt's advanced that card. He hasn't scored it as yet. So there's a 4th token. Project Vitruvius with a counter on. Matt just commented that that's something he's never seen anybody do, and it's not something you see a lot actually. Vitruvius doesn't tend to get over advanced, but it can be a really powerful ability actually. Just being able to call a card back from archives at will gives you a sort of proto Jackson, especially maybe with Rumour Mill now sort of coming out very soon. A lot of people predicting it to really shake up the meta, especially for Corps who rely on Jackson to get themselves out of trouble. Possibly over advanced Vitruviuses could become a thing. Obviously Jackson retiring at some point once rotation finally hits in Netrunner. It's going to be really interesting to see what does come out. We've seen a few cards of similar effects to what he offers. No direct replacements, possibly because FFG just aware that what he does with both of his effects, possibly just, well, I say possibly, I don't mean to say possibly, Jackson's definitely a very, very powerful card and almost certainly overpowered in terms of having both abilities on one card. Matt ices R&D, passes the turn over to Simon. It's quite interesting with Leela. It's really interesting to work out. Count Siphon coming down, so this will be really interesting to see what Matt can res. There's a magnet, so that will keep Simon out. Yeah, as I was saying, It's really interesting with Leader trying to work out when you do and don't want to run and face check ice. You kind of want stuff to be unres to bounce back, but at the same time you do want to put pressure on. So Simon obviously managed to bait out the res on the HQ ice with the account siphon threat, and then in turn that's allowed him to run on the archives to get the Temujin contract and the security testing. And yeah, he's going to make the most of that and just get more of that Temujin contracts. One more run. So that leaves 4 credits left on Temujin. Simon's economic advantage is really big. 21 credits to Matt's 2 already. And I don't think Simon's going to be too upset being just 2 points behind. So Matt's using the Project Vitruvius counter really early actually to take back a blue level clearance, which he plays again immediately. Just to further boost his money, get some cards. There's an install. So ETF can get back from Siphon or low credits relatively quick thanks to its ability to install cards and make money. Especially if you've got an advanced assembly like that. So Matt's just gone from starting his turn on 2 credits to starting Simon's first click on, I believe it'll be on 10 credits. No, 11 credits even actually. Okay, so the player's just debating actually whether security testing happens before Matt can fire the advanced assembly lines during Simon's turn. Either way, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's going on archives anyway. So yeah, Matt able to go from 2 credits to 8 credits there, as well as installing a card and a piece of ice. That's pretty decent going. Matt's ETF decks tend to be next decks. So it tends to be a lot of ice that's cheap to res, not very strong on its own, but as multiple next ice come online, they become more and more imposing. And Simon will be aware of that. Simon and Matt play each other all the time, both regular members of our local meta and tournament scene. So, although Simon's deck here is something quite different from what we've seen him play before, Matt's deck relatively straightforward for what you'd expect playing Matt, actually. Yeah, some more money going on to Kate. So Kate's got 9 credits sat on her at present. 4 credits left on the Temujin and an 11 credit advantage on the Corp. Corporation installs a card there. Advance and a hedge fund. The single advance means that is either a corporate sales team or it's a 3 for 2, which Matt just wants to score slightly out of sync, saving himself a credit to react to the Leela bounce. It's a really common tactic actually for more experienced or high level, if you want to call it, corp players. Will start to slightly desync their scoring. A lot of corporations tend to not want to invest money into agendas till they have to, so we'll try and put 3 advancements in one turn and finish on their last click on scoring. With Leela, a lot of corps will pull that forward to score on the second click and just allow them the chance to respond to whatever Leela bounces. So that could be what Matt's doing here. Simon installs an Earthrise Hotel. They're just going to get into the card draw at the start of his next 3 turns. There's also a turning wheel coming down. Triple advance from Matt. So that is a corporate sales team. Corporate sales team, a really cool 4 for 2 that came out in the last cycle cards. It's 4 advancements, 2 points, but then over your next 5 turns and your opponent's next 5 turns, so 5 rounds, you're going to make 10 credits, 1 at the start of each player's turn, and that makes it a really great agenda actually. It just pays for itself back. It gives you a nice little drip of money just coming in. With ETF's ID as well, you've already got that drip for installing cards each turn. It just keeps the money ticking over. We haven't seen any Adonis campaigns or Eve campaigns from Matt. I'm not sure if he's running any with. Maybe we just haven't seen them so far. So I'm thinking very carefully about his turn. So there's Paperclip. Paperclip is a really... Simon actually changed his mind, Paperclip, and there is a reason for that. Paperclip's a really, really cool fractor that's came out in the most recent data pack Blood Money. The cool thing with Clone Chip, it's an Anarch fractor, 4 to install, 1 strength. It's 1 credit to boost, so it's actually X credits. You put X credits in, and it boosts strength by that much and breaks X subroutines as well. It's pretty much either directly comparable or better than Corroder on every single barrier in the game. And perhaps coolest of all, it has its own inbuilt clone chip ability. So if it's in your heap, whenever you encounter a barrier, you can immediately install it by paying its install cost, which is really cool. So you no longer having to play for clone chips, but still getting that ability. So what Simon was able to do in that turn was to install other cards from his hand, discard the paper chip at the end of the turn, but it's still available to him as and when, unless Matt plays obviously a blacklist, which doesn't seem likely. I'm actually really, really in love with Paperclip. I've been running Paperclip in a couple of my runner decks recently, and it just seems really good. I think it's actually my fractor of choice at the minute, for pretty much any deck. It has got that higher install cost, but for the added ability of the clone chip type effect and the fact that it's just really, really comparable on so many pieces of ice to Corroder, just seems really good. Matt just changed up some of his plastic credit tokens into some higher denominations just to make it easy to track the number of money he's got there. Simon's also got down a medium and a daily cast on the last turn whilst I was talking about the Paperclip. So medium turning wheel is really cool. Really nice way of putting pressure on R&D. Every time you're running, you're accessing more cards via medium. The turning wheel can just be getting more and more credits on it as well, which can be combined with medium for some real heavy digs. There's a passport, so that's a code gate breaker which only works on central servers. So that's not going to help with the Turing, but Simon can always click through a Turing anyway, and he does have access to Paperclip via its clone chip type ability. I really should stop calling it a clone chip type ability because it's not clone chip, it's just its own thing. So count siphon from Simon. Matt Rez is a Sandberg. So Sandberg again, another card that's come out in this latest cycle of cards. One that at first and I think quite a few other people thought was really going to shake up the way the game was played, and possibly hasn't really done so. So Sandberg rewards corporations for being rich. If you have 10 or more credits in your credit pool, each piece of ice gains +1 strength for every 5 credits in your credit pool. So even if you've got, say, 16 credits, all your pieces of ice suddenly gain 3 strength. That's incredibly strong, but in a current meta game where political operative is in most runner decks and rumour mill is about to drop, possibly it's just been answered too soon for it to really sort of establish itself as a tournament deck. I play a lot of Jinteki games online, tons and tons of Sandberg online for a short period. I also saw a lot of it locally for a very, very short period, about 2 weeks, and then it's just fizzled is an unfair thing to say. It's certainly not died out, but it's possibly not turned into the archetype we thought it might have done. I think possibly one of the problems, I've discussed this with a few players, is that it sort of requires HB decks to create a third remote. Quite often a lot of HB decks are already they're protecting the centrals, they have a scoring server, and then they have like a Breaker Bay server, which is where their Adonis and their Eves go to make money. Having a Sandberg just requires another server to protect and to have enough ice for and have enough money to res the ice and keep above 10 to make Sandberg worthwhile. And that possibly is why the reason why it doesn't work. So Simon has double siphoned there, and then because he's floating the tags, has emptied Katie Jones for his last click, because otherwise that's far too tempting a trash target for Matt. So the 4 players taking part tonight were myself, Colin Clark, Simon Johnston and Matt Ward-Hume. It's quite a casual atmosphere, despite we do try to treat our invitationals as competitive formats. All the players were quite good at not watching games as they were playing or as their sort of games had finished, trying not to see what else was going on or scouting, so to speak. But despite that, it is quite a laid-back atmosphere. In general, we're a laid-back, pretty casual group. There's a little bit of table talk going on about networking versus paper tripping, and how networking is just superior for the most part in every way, but that's entirely irrelevant to the game and probably not great for the players when they're trying to focus on what they're doing. So there's the last Earthrise going to go off there. Turning Wheel's got 2 counters on it from the account siphons there, which is another really cool combo. Getting the obvious abilities of account siphon, which has been one of the strongest cards in the runner arsenal from day one in Netrunner, and then just being able to actually feed the Turning Wheel some more credit, some more tokens whilst doing so. It's just really, really good. So Simon again with the economic advantage here, 36 credits to Matt's 5. So I think Simon at the minute just trying to decide what he's doing, if he wants to get rid of those tags that he's floating for the account siphons, or if he's happy to just go tag me. He's got a lot of resources down to go tag me, even though Matt's not really in the place to threaten trashing them. He's not really going to be a great way to go. So yes, Simon installs a crash space for click 1. Now I believe, clicks 2, 3 and 4 he's going to clear tags. The first one using the recurring credits from the crash base, and the next 2 using some real money. Yeah, so Matt trashes the turning. Well, that seems like a decent shout. So there's the Jackson res and use from Matt. I know how different it will be when Jackson does finally rotate out. Such a crutch for corporations to use. Some would argue, myself included actually, Jackson actually kind of a necessary part of the game. I think the only possible mistake FFG really made was putting both of those abilities in one card. Neither ability itself is too sort of overpoweringly strong, but having them both built in together and having them be 2 abilities that synergise really well together just seemed very strong. So I'm just confirming that security testing is staying on archives there. That Temujin contract's still over there as well. He has still got 1 tag remaining from the 2 count siphons 2 turns ago. He's got the crash space to use to clear that though, which I'm assuming he's probably going to do at some point this turn. So career fair for a Temujin contract. So Temujin contract is a unique card. So that original Temujin contract is going to get trashed. The new one comes in its place, and this time Simon's placing on R&D, which with his medium does make sense. Temujin contract it kind of means that if you can get in R&D, you basically get a 4 credit refund or whatever it costs you to get in there. So he's running the R&D now. Yeah, Matt Rez's Magnet. So Magnet has a really cool ability to just bring hosted cards onto it, which is mostly used versus parasites, but can be used against stuff like Knight. The other thing that's really cool with Magnet is it's just a really decent code gate in general. The other card there is Bailiff. Bailiff kind of like a pop-up window, which is also a gear check. So it's a 0 strength barrier, 2 to res, but every time the runner breaks subroutine on it, you gain a credit. So Simon able to get through that thanks to Paperclip just bringing itself into play when he encountered the Bailiff. Season Adonis campaign, which he trashes, essentially for free, having got the Temujin credits. So Simon's going to run again. It's going to cost him 3 to get in. Gains 4, so he's basically gaining a credit for running R&D, and he's getting a medium counter. So both those cards come back. It looked like the second was for Biotic Labour. So Matt has got the money to Biotic with 6 credits. Well, I think that was the second card down, so he's not going to see it this turn unless he Jacksons. Click 1 Jackson, so that puts the Biotic in Matt's hand. I think it was Biotic anyway. Trying out a slightly different camera placement actually with the tournament today. Got the camera far lower to the table than I normally would. It means that there's less zooms. Hopefully the quality of the picture comes through a lot better for you. The cards are a bit more clearer. Although I'm not sure how it's sort of going to do in terms of just being closer down. Maybe the slant isn't ideal. Do let me know in the comments if you have any feedback on that, of course. Simon put security testing on the remote at the end, which has just got a piece of ice protecting it, nothing installed within. Daily Cast empties itself out, 2 more credits off that. So Simon, whatever that R&D ice could be, Simon has got an answer for it, even though Fairy is only a one-time answer. Unless it's Mythic Ice, but that doesn't seem likely. So yeah, Simon runs R&D, so that's another Bailiff. So although it's only going to cost Simon 4 credits to get in, which he'll get back from Temujin, but Matt is going to gain 2 credits. So that doesn't seem terrible for Matt. It's not a bad exchange. So 3 card R&D dig using medium gets no agendas for Simon, although he is going to trash that Adonis campaign. So that's 2 Adonis campaigns he's trashed, which just gives you a clue of the fact that he does want to keep Matt poor and keep this economic advantage just safely in his favour. Simon again just weighing up his next click. He's running archives now. So this is presumably to try and force that Jackson res. Okay, so there's another bailiff, which Simon does break. Simon actually mistakenly takes a credit from outside of the game into his credit pool and gained a credit for breaking that rather than actually spending it. Relatively minor mistake, easy to make in the middle of a game. With Simon's massive advantage on money, I'm not sure it's the end of the world really. We'll see if Simon wins the game with a credit remaining, then maybe that's a problem. So that is interesting. So Simon runs Archives, gets a Global Food Initiative, even though Matt's got a Jackson on the board. So that's really interesting that Matt was just willing to give that up. You could, in the current meta, presume that Matt might be doing some kind of exchange of information, but that doesn't seem likely out of HB at all. So presumably that's because he doesn't want to refresh the cards that Simon's going to see on another medium R&D run. Because even though on his next R&D run Simon's going to see 4 cards, he's already seen 3 of those cards. So Matt doesn't really want to shuffle R&D and just show him more new cards. Medium isn't a card you can really afford to ignore anyway, realistically, but you can, if you know it's taxing for them to get in or hard for them to get in, you can at least be aware it's only 1 new card at a time. Whereas if you do activate a Jackson to shuffle R&D, you're essentially showing them all new cards each time. So there's another daily cast from Simon. Matt just joking there that he needs to remember not to trash the corporate sales team when the last credit comes off it. So used to playing runner resources where the last credit coming off the card trashes it. So there's an install from Matt. Biotic Labour. So that was Biotic we saw on top of R&D. That is going to be a score of an accelerated beta test. So that's the answer of why the Jackson wasn't popped last turn, because he wants it as a safety net for this ABT. And our good accelerated beta test here could be the difference between Matt just pulling ahead and getting the game wrapped up. So there is 1 next bronze which goes in R&D. The other 2 cards got trashed. That does leave Matt on 6 victory points now. So Simon again's got all the answers to get into that R&D. It's currently going to cost him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get in, 6 to get in. Yeah, so Simon pays 6. Matt gains 2. Simon also gets 4 whack from his Temujin, and he's going to access 4 cards. And that's a whiff. That's 4 cards which Simon didn't steal. That at least tells Simon that unless Matt's got the win in his hand, Matt's going to have to wait out to try and find that 7th point to win the game right now. And that is the other nice thing about an R&D medium lock, is that you, even if you're not getting the agendas that you need, you are gaining information about what your opponent is going to get each turn. You can just predict what cards they've got in hand and what they're going to do with those. Simon runs a Jackson presumably to try and force a pop, which Matt elects not to do and just lets Simon trash the card instead. I should now just point out briefly, we are within the final 10 minutes of this game. This is a timed game. Because we were running double elimination but with no direct Swiss rounds to retake standings from, what we were doing was running a 40-minute time limit. If neither player had won at the end of 40 minutes, we were then continuing. Obviously the game would end if somebody got to a game win condition such as 7 agenda points, a flat line or a milled corporation. But the alternative we were doing was checking at the end of each complete game round, so the end of each runner turn, if a player had the advantage and was winning on agenda points and they won the game. So it does mean some of our games could potentially go long, but it's the what I felt in my mind when I put together the rules for the Summer Invitational felt like the fairest way to do that. So Simon did get an ABT on that previous run, so that does now put him on 4 points. Just narrowing the gap a little on Matt. Yes, Simon running Archives last click, breaks the bailiff and sees, I think that was Hedge Fund and a Melange Mining Corp. So Matt drawing up, we know there's not an agenda in that top of the deck. So Simon's got a relatively unopposed path into R&D. Matt will need to try and address that at some point if he wants to just see it through and get to the 7 points. Otherwise Simon can just keep him R&D locked and see the cards before Matt can. A good R&D deck, a good medium deck, so it can get you in that R&D lock as well, where you just see more of the corporation's cards than they ever can. Okay, so new piece of ice again on R&D. So that's 5 pieces of ice deep on R&D. So Simon just pricing up the cost of an R&D run here briefly. Yeah, it runs R&D. So that's an architect. That is going to require the fairy to go off. Simon's not really going to want that to activate, so yeah. Brings the fairy up to strength, pops it to trash itself and breaks subroutines. Gets in the rest of those pieces of ice. Matt will gain 2. Simon is going to see a bunch of cards. See 6 cards. He's seen 2 of them previously. So that is a 6-card medium dig, which got nothing, which is kind of frustrating. Once you start getting to the 5, 6, 7 counters mark, you kind of feel like you've got a really good chance of agenda on every run, but that's just not happening here for Simon. So Matt purges virus tokens at this point, and that's a good call because R&D now it's just at a place where it is costly for Simon to get in. The Temujin contract's gone. And that will just hopefully put the place back into Matt's favour again. Because even at 4-6 down, Simon did look comfortably like he was bossing that game at that point. Simon's drawing a card, click 1, click 2, also a card. Put some money on Catty Jones, and yeah, short gamble. So that was the 1 minute time warning just gone off in the background there for these players. So there's a minute left, at which point we will start going to the timed proceedings. So Simon running HQ. Pays an extra 2 credits thanks to Sandberg, now that Matt's up to 10 credits, and sees a Jackson which he elects to trash. Runs HQ again. Caesar, I think that was Executive Boot Camp. And yeah, Simon put some money on Katie. So Matt Rez is a Museum of History here. Biotic Labour to go back to try and just force out that last agenda. That was actually timed, just been called. So Matt will complete this turn, then Simon's got one turn to pull the game level or win. Pulling it level would mean we carry on until we've got a direct winner using our own special tournament rules here. Yeah, so Matt has put the Biotic back. So if he can top deck the Biotic and he's already got a agenda in hand, which I'm not sure whether he does or not, that will give him the out to just win straight here. And we're about to find out. Doesn't seem like a Biotic because he hasn't just threw it down the table, so all Matt's got to do really is keep Simon from scoring 2 points on the next turn. So 6 pieces of ice goes down that R&D. Matt, that probably is the ultimate signal that there is nothing in hand, which means any remaining agendas are going to be in that R&D. He just wants to keep Simon out to just get this game covered and finished. Pass the turn, and this is the moment of truth, if you will, for Simon. He's got to get an agenda. He's got to get 2 points for agendas on this turn to keep this game going. So there's Catty empties on click 1 to take him up to 10 credits. What can he do with that here to make this count? So Simon sure gambles, installs a Mongoose, and that leaves him 1 click, which he's going to go for R&D. Hope to top deck the 2-pointer. And Matt's put out. That's the next bronze. So Simon is going to be able to get in, and it's all going to be down to what this top deck card is. Simon needs 2 points. Matt is happy for anything of 1 or 0 points. Or an NABD would be fine for Matt right now, because Simon is not in the place to steal it. Access 1 card. Simon messes around saying that's a win. It's not. So Matt takes a timed win. So actually coming into this tournament, Matt had come through the losers bracket, which means we actually went to a grand final. I did try to get the grand final filmed, but due to battery I actually didn't manage to get the entire game. So I will just confirm that Matt was actually able in the second game, the grand final rematch, to best Simon again to win the Cheap Thrills Summer Invitational and become the second name on our prestigious shield. Simon really put up a good game, just couldn't get there in the end. I may actually put up that other game at some point in the near future, but it's not complete sadly, so I would just want to confirm what the events and final results were there. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back soon with more Netrunner coverage.